Hi, Patrick Sedivy here, and I want to talk to you about this clock for just a second. Notice the time. What time is it? It's the last 5 minutes before 12. I want you to imagine that this is the last 5 minutes before midnight on the last day of the month. Is this what your life looks like at that time? Are you frantically trying to get a hold of your builders and anybody else that's going to place an order just so that you can get to the rank that you're trying to qualify at? Well, if this is you, you're not the only one. Many people have been there. But this is not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for your builders and leaders and your team. You burn them out. You make people feel like they're being used and that all you need is for you to rank advance. They don't care about you rank advancing. So I want you to think about this for a second. The last day of the month is not an emergency. It happens very predictably every month. So I'm sure you've heard this. If you fail to plan, you got it, you plan to fail. So the key is planning for the end of the month. And so I want to introduce to you Business Builder Worksheets. This is something that Elise and I have used ever since the very beginning of our building with doTERRA. And we did it not on fancy papers or sheets like you have right here, and not like what we're going to go through today, but in essence, all of the calculations and all of the planning that takes place, we did it from the very first month we were in doTERRA. We just needed to look at where we're at, what we're missing to get to our rank, and make a plan to make up that difference. And that's what these are all for. We have builder worksheets all the way from elite for every rank all the way up to diamond. So let's break it down a little bit and walk through an example of how you would use one of these. Here is the Silver Builder worksheet. As you can see, the Silver Builder worksheet is divided into 3 steps. So you have step 1, which is basically finding the classes that you need in each of your 3 legs to qualify as silver. Step 2 is to put your action plan together, and step 3 is to set some incentives. So we're going to break down and go through each of these steps. Also notice that the sheet is divided into 3 columns. One for your elite leg 1, or your leg that should be elite, right? Your first leg that should be elite. The middle column is elite leg 2, and the right column is elite leg 3. So let's jump right in and break this down. So step 1, we need to add up all of the LRP orders in leg 1. The reason why we use the LRP orders rather than the previous month's volume is that it's a more accurate indicator of what the coming month's volume is going to look like, and B, we want to make sure that we have as accurate as possible. It's never going to be 100% accurate, but you want to have as close as possible an estimate of what your volume in that leg will be, so that you know how much volume you need to get through new classes. And so the way we do that is by adding up all of the scheduled LRP orders in leg 1. So let's say you go to your virtual office and you pull up that leg, you zoom in on that leg, and you find that you have 3,312 points scheduled for LRP in that leg. So your next step, line 2, is to subtract 3,000. So you subtract 3,000, you have 312 left, okay? And then in parentheses under line 2, you see if above 0, enter 0. So 312 is clearly above 0, so we're going to enter 0. What that's really telling you is that you need 0 more volume in order for that leg to qualify as elite, okay? And then line number 3, which is the purpose of which is to find how many classes are needed in that leg this month, in order to get that leg to qualify as elite. So what we do is we divide by 500, right? But since you don't need any more volume, you know that that's going to be 0 anyway. But if you do it on a calculator, you'll do 0 divided by 500, you'll end up with 0. And what that's telling you is that you need 0 more classes scheduled in order for elite leg 1 to be to qualify as elite, right? And you knew that intuitively just by looking at the volume, saying it's over 3,000, so you don't need to do anything. But I just wanted to show you here that the math works out anyway. Does that mean that you won't do anything with that leg? Of course not. You're still going to support that builder, help that builder move forward, maybe have them fill out the Premier Builder worksheet so that they can be working towards Premier. if that's what their goal is. And that will just help you. And when you're not going for silver anymore, when you're going for gold, then you're going to have leg one that's closer to or already at Premier, which is what you'll need for you to be gold. So, all right, so for now, for you to go silver, though, you don't need to worry about scheduling any classes in that leg. Let's move to Elite Leg 2. So you add up all of the scheduled LRP orders in leg 2, you end up with, let's say, 1,847 for our example. Subtract 3,000, you end up with negative 1,153. What this is telling you is that you are missing, or you need, 1,153 points more to get that leg to elite. And how are you going to get that extra volume? By doing more classes, okay? So how many classes do you need? Well, that's what number 3 is. You take negative 1,153 and you divide it by 500, and that'll tell you how many classes you need to do. Why are we dividing by 500, by the way? Because that's the average amount of volume that you can expect from a class, assuming that you do everything right the way that we teach as far as sampling goes, making sure that they have a good experience, following up with them, inviting them to a class, doing your 2-hour call reminders, your your 2-day call reminders and your 2-hour text reminders for the classes, and teaching the class the way that we teach you. If you do all of that, then you can expect to have about 500 OV as the volume that comes in from any given class on average. Okay, so that's why we use that number 500. So we're going to take negative 1,153 divided by 500, and we end up with negative 2.306. What that's telling you is that you are missing, or you need, 2.306 more classes in order for that elite leg to qualify as elite. Okay, your second leg here. Now, obviously, you've never taught a fraction of a class. Nobody's ever taught 2.3 classes, right? Of course, sometimes it might feel like it because maybe nobody shows up for a class, or only one person shows up for a class, or nobody buys from a class, right? So sometimes it may feel like it's kind of a fraction of a class, but you need to schedule, in this case, 3 classes, not 2, 3. We always round up to more classes taught, so that you make sure that you have a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a safety net. Wouldn't it be much better to end the month with a few hundred PV more, over 3,000 in that leg, rather than a couple hundred PV not enough? I mean, our whole goal here is to make sure that we hit our goals, our rank that we want to hit for the month, and also to not be frazzled and panicked at the last 5 minutes of the month, right? So we always build in buffers and safety factors like this one here. So we're going to schedule 3 classes. Now let's go to Elite Leg 3. Let's say you add up all of the scheduled LRP orders in Leg 3. You end up with 2,218. You subtract 3,000. That gives you negative 782. Again, saying that you're missing 782 points in order to have that leg qualify as elite. Divide that by 500 again, and you get negative 1.564, but we're not going to use that negative 1.564. We're going to use negative 2 so that we can schedule 2 classes. Okay, so that's part 1 of the Silver Builder worksheet. Let's move on to part 2. This is where we actually create the action plan. This is where the rubber meets the road. Everything in step 1 was just setting things up so you know exactly how many classes you need to do. So here the first step is to list the top 3 builders and sharers in each of our legs. So let's say we have 3 builders and sharers in leg 1, we have 1 in leg 2, and we have 2 in leg 3. So we just write those people down. Anybody that's willing to host a class or teach a class and do classes for that month, we'll put their names here, okay? Then you'll notice that here it says schedule the classes needed from step 1, right, the step we just did a minute ago, by the 3rd Friday of the month. What do we mean by the 3rd Friday of the month? Well, it means that you want these classes to take place by the 3rd Friday of the month. Why is this important? Well, let me just say it this way. If your class is scheduled for the last day of the month, okay, regardless of what month it is, if it's scheduled for the last day of the month or the last few days of the month, even, and let's say nobody shows up, let's say that it's a dud of a class and either nobody shows up or nobody buys, or even if just not enough people buy. Let's say it only happens to bring in 200 points, right? I mean, that 500 is an average. You'll have classes where you bring in more, you'll have classes where you bring in less. And if that last class near the last day of the month ends up falling short, then you're kind of in a little bit of a pickle and you're going to have a hard time reaching your goal. But if you schedule the classes all to take place before or by the third Friday of the month, what ends up happening is if those last classes that you do, let's say on the third Friday of the month, end up being uh, less than what you want them to be or less than what you need them to be for that leg to qualify as elite, well, you still have over a week to schedule another class. Now, it's not ideal. You would like maybe a little bit more time to schedule a class so that you can get enough uh, people sampled and everything. But you do the best you can, and with a little over a week's time to schedule that class, it's enough to be able to bring in some volume and make things happen. Okay, potentially you could even schedule two classes if you need to, but you'll just kind of see what those needs are as they go, as you go through the month, right? So this is really critical. This is where if you follow this and you schedule it by all these classes by the third Friday of the month, then what ends up happening is you're able to make adjustments and hit your target if things don't go as planned, which they always end up not going exactly as you planned anyway. So please follow this advice. If you don't follow this advice, well, you're destined to have some panic uh, circumstances at the end of the month. All right, so let's start here. Obviously, in leg one, we said even though we have three builders and shares, we said that we don't need any classes for that leg to be elite. So we're going to skip right over it for the purposes of this builder worksheet. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, you're still going to want to work with them. But let's go to leg number two. We only have one person willing to work there, Vanessa. Okay. Let's say she's not quite ready to teach classes on her own. So this first class that we schedule on June 3rd at 7 p.m., she's going to host it. It's one of her classes, right? But I'm the one that's going to present just to help make sure that she gets through that. But then the next class on June 7th at 6 p.m., she's going to be the one that both hosts it and presents it. And June 12th is her third class, and she's also going to be presenting that one because by then she's already set and good to go for presenting her own classes. Okay, let's go to leg number three. There we have Suzanne and Mary. Let's say Mary does a class on June 3rd, but you're going to say, whoa, wait a minute, you already have a class on June 3rd with Vanessa. Well, absolutely right. I'm teaching the one with Vanessa, but Mary, she's a builder, let's say, and she's hosting and she's presenting her own class. So we could have two classes going on exactly the same night, exactly the same time, and she could, that could happen because I don't need to be in two places. Mary's taking care of it. And how beautiful it is when you have more and more people in your organization that are teaching classes, and so there's classes going on all the time, with or without you, right? Let's say the second class is on June 7th. Again, you'll notice that I'm packing these classes as close as possible to the early stages of the month so that if anything goes wrong, then we have plenty of time to make adjustments, schedule another class. So, for example, let's say the June 3rd class ends up being terrible and nobody shows up, or you only get 100 points of volume or whatever from that class. You find that out on June 3rd. June 4th in the morning, you're ready. You're going and you're scheduling another class for in that leg because you know that you missed the target with that one, and so you could schedule the next class. Again, you don't have to wait till the end of the month, so you don't have to schedule your additional class at the end of the month. You could, at this point, if one of the early classes in the month end up not working out, you can schedule another class right away for, let's say, June 15th. And you've got a couple weeks to prepare for it. And you can make that an awesome class. All right, let's move on to step number 3. This is where we set incentives. Now you need to keep in mind that although your goal is to go silver, that doesn't mean that your builder's goals are to go elite or to host their class or whatever. So it's really key that you give them some sort of incentive. You make it about them, not about you, right? I mean, if all it is about you going silver and the only reason why they're doing these classes or going elite is so that you can go silver, well, their motivation will run short if they run into any problems whatsoever. But if you're giving them an incentive, they're going to be focused on that incentive. It's something they want and they're excited about it. So they're a lot more likely to be able to overcome the, oh, I don't feel like doing this class today, or oh, I have a couple people that canceled on me. Oh, I want to just cancel the class, right? But if they're focused on that incentive that you're offering them, then they're a lot more likely to just follow through. So here's just a few examples. So let's say Vanessa, she's has quite a bit of work to do. We're going to offer her a diffuser. She's going to be really excited about that, right? She's always wanted a diffuser. Maybe for Mary, maybe she's building this business and her husband isn't super supportive. She's taking time teaching classes and stuff like that, and he wishes she was just home or whatever, or spending time with her. Well, maybe just the thing that Mary needs is for you to watch the kids for a night so that she and her husband could go out on a date and have a good time. So it doesn't even have to cost money, right? So these incentives don't necessarily have to cost you money. Another example, maybe for Suzanne, you can get her an Essential Life book. You just kind of have to work with each person individually and decide what's going to motivate them that I can offer. And that's what you need to provide as an incentive. So that is how you fill out the Silver Builder Worksheet. Now, I want you to keep in mind that the plan you start with is never the one that gets you there. So you're going to write out this plan. You're going to fill out this builder worksheet right at the very beginning of the month. So by the first day of the month, you want to have this builder worksheet filled out and your classes all scheduled so you can pack everything as close to the beginning of the month as possible so that you have enough time to fill in for buffers, extra classes if anything doesn't go right. And so what you're going to do is you're going to make that plan. You're going to make the plan as ideal as possible. But if something goes wrong, a class cancels, you get less volume at a class, then you could always fill it in. You keep adjusting it. So what I want you to do is have that plan handy and throughout the month, visit it every week and readjust as things go well or wrong. Just make any adjustments you need to that plan so that you're not frantic at the end of the month. And so you can achieve this with the Business Builder worksheets, whether you're going for Elite, going for Premier, going for Silver, Gold, Platinum, or Diamond. There's builder worksheets that you can use to help you plan and prepare so that you can achieve that rank as well as possible. And if you do that properly, this is how your end of the month should look like. Not like that frantic lady that was at the very beginning of this presentation, where she had like 5 phones that she was calling and frantically trying to get a hold of people. Because if you plan well, you should be able to achieve your goals before the last minute of the month. Okay? Now, there may be some exceptions where despite all of your planning, despite all of your safety nets that you have, and things go wrong and you still have to scramble a little bit at the end of the month, that's not the end of the world, but at least that's not going to be the rule for you. It's going to be more of an exception rather than what happens on a constant basis. Now, I want to show you this picture. I love this picture because this is our good friends and Presidential Diamonds, Kyle and Kirsten Kirschbaum. And I remember getting this picture from them on the last day of the month when they went Blue Diamond for the very first time. Now you'll notice on the bottom right corner, there's golf clubs. So this is them going golfing on the last day of the month. Why? Because they had already hit their goal before the end of the month. So they had nothing to be frantic about. They were good. They were there. Wouldn't it be much nicer for you to rank events like this every month than for you to be frantic at the end of the month? So that's what I want you to shoot for. I want you to remember this. There are some people who live in a dream world, and there are some who face reality. And then there are those who turn one into the other. So I want you to go and turn your dream world into reality, but make sure you plan to make it happen and make sure you keep yourself some safety nets and buffers so that you can make adjustments as necessary to that plan so that you can reach your goal. Thank you very much and have a great day.